ನಿಮ್ಮೆಲ್ಲರಿಗೂ ನಮಸ್ಕಾರ. I am privileged to be here while Sanjeev is on the way. Let me talk about Viksit Bharat, making it happen. It's important all of us understand where we are today and what we ought to do to make the future happen and make India a developed country. For 75 years, our people have struggled hard to create the country as it is. Now we must take it forward to make it a developed nation. What is a developed nation? In my personal view, a developed nation is like Ramarajya. What is Ramarajya? Ramarajya is a country or a place or a society where there is no want, there is no poverty, there is justice, and every child can dream and realize the dream. And everybody is protected, and dharma shall prevail, the rule of law shall prevail. It shall be a just society where people can live without fear or favor, and people are reasonably well off economically, and the necessities of life are available to everybody. That is the dream that motivated our freedom movement, motivated our civilization for very, very long. And that is the kind of country that we should create. And that is what a developed India will be. In 1947, when we got our freedom, we were the most advanced country in Asia. And our industrial infrastructure was intact because China was destroyed in the war, Southeast Asia was destroyed in the war, Japan was destroyed in the war. Great Britain owed us 1.5 billion pounds for the war effort because we sent 20 lakh soldiers to fight for the war. They were paid 10-20% of what the British soldiers, the white man, was paid. And all that cost was given as a loan to Great Britain. And we spent our resources for the war effort. And we had a great part to play in the victory of the allied nations in Asia. In 1950, when we gave ourselves a constitution and had our first government, unfortunately, our leaders of the day thought that socialism was the dream output for India. They wanted to bring in a licensed quota Raj. Gandhiji, when he was alive, protested against price control. And Gandhiji protested against the licensed quota Raj, which Nehru put in place. Because Gandhiji understood, being a Gujarati Baniya, what it means. Because Gandhiji used to say, this देश में सरकार व्यापारी है, उस देश में जनता भिखारी है. And Nehru brought in price control and suppressed private capital. There's nothing wrong with the public sector. Public sector was needed. But suppressing private capital was wrong. And what are the consequences? But in 1950 to 1980, India grew at 3.5% a year, while the leftist economists, in a very derisive way, called the Hindu rate of growth. The world grew at 4.5%, Asia grew at 6.5%, and in 1980, we were poorer relatively compared to 1950. But in 1950 to 1980, population grew at 2.5%, and economy grew at 3.5%, per capita income grew 1% a year. And just like Shashi Tharoor spoke in the famous speech in Oxford and said, but in 1900 to 1947, India grew at 0.1% a year in its economy because of the loot by Great Britain. India has historically been the richest country in the world from the start of civilization till 1750, alternating for a few centuries with China. In 1750, China, India made up 45% of the world GDP. And the reason was very clear. India had a very rich agricultural base. It was an agriculturally surplus nation. It had highly skilled people, artisans. India exported textiles and man-made goods to all the countries on the world. They came here to trade. Pliny the Elder wrote 2,000 years ago that trade with India will impoverish Rome because Rome had to loot other countries and send gold and silver to buy textiles and other spices and luxury goods from India. And the Indian trade along the western coast of India is well known, including Muziris, the trade port in Kerala. And for the Romans to send gold and silver to India was a very, very big thing. And please remember, in the east for the Romans, India was the country. And for the Chinese, it was west. When China was developing, they always told the scholars, go west. So we had the Chinese, Fayan and Yuan-Sang come here to India and look at Nalanda and all great universities. India was the face where the first university of the world started. It's the fountainhead of knowledge. People came from all over to study in India. In Nalanda, it was said, there were 10,000 students and 2,000 faculty. And in Nalanda, there was a Dwarapal. Whenever a student came walking from all across India, the Dwarapal asked him questions. And only if you answer the question, you're allowed inside. There's an entrance test. Entrance test was not new. You just couldn't walk inside. And all that has been destroyed by the Islamic invasions from Central Asia over time. So we must have respect for this country. And we fought the greatest movement in human history for freedom with non-violence. Not because we did not believe in violence. Savarkar spoke about the need for us to stand up to tyranny. And we had Bhagat Singh and other revolutionaries who fought the British. But what Gandhiji and others felt was, if you have a violent uprising against the British, violence in the heart of a population will create a very violent society where people may kill others for the sake of ruling. And once violence is unleashed in society, it's difficult to put it down. And when violence rises up, the weak and the poor and women will suffer. And we didn't have this suffering. Any society which had a violent revolution, like China, which is a very large society, saw a huge amount of killing and the rise of totalitarian forces which believed in oppression and suppression to remain in power. So it was a very different kind of philosophy. And what our leaders did was to evoke courage in a beaten people. We were a beaten people. You must read the book, The Case for India, by Will Durant, where Will Durant speaks about the loot of India. Utsa Patnaik of Columbia University has written a tract how between 1750 to 1947, the British looted $42 trillion in today's money. You must remember all this, because when somebody criticizes India and points a finger at India, give it back to them. Stand up for the country. Now, the first 30 years were lost years. We opened up in 1980 to 1990. We grew at 5.5% a year. Population grew at 2.5%. And overseas debt grew from 20 billion to 80 billion. 91, we had $5 billion of reserves, 15 days of imports, and we are broke. And we opened up because we are broke, not because the Congress had wisdom, our same great thing came to the head. Because we followed wrong policies, and the result was magic. In 91, our GDP was $275 billion. March 31, 2025 is $3.9 trillion. We've grown at 8.1% a year CAGR for 34 years. No other country has grown that pace with the large country. China has grown at 9.9, 10% for 40 years. But we grew at 8.1%. In rupees, we grew from 5,32,000 crores to 331 lakh crores, 12.1% a year. In rupees, 12.1% a year, every year for 34 years. That's due to the economic freedom given to our people. And I was a part of this growth after the economic freedom. I was born a long time ago. I started my working career in 1982 in a control era when everything was controlled. Like Murthy said, to import a computer, 175% duty. To go abroad, you got to write to RBI and ask them to give money. And if you didn't have money, when you fly abroad, you could go to the airport and show your passport at the counter. They gave you $8. I think later $50. That's why the old stories about Indians going to New York with $8. Remember all those stories? It was true. And we grew up then. But we didn't know the difference. And people wanted to have more children. I used to go to my mechanic. I should drive a SD. Go to my mechanic and said, "अरे भैया इतने बच्चे क्यों है? साहब क्या करना? रेशन के लिए चाहिए, दूध के लिए चाहिए, पानी के लिए चाहिए. मैं हम क्या करें?" He's telling me. And that is true. We stood in line for water. We stood in line for milk. We stood in line for ration. We didn't have telephones. We had to wait many, many years. And that was the socialistic paradise we grew up in. And we have grown so much during these years. And we struggled in the last 30 years to build this country. So many of us. And we struggled to build this country, and we have been successful. We are $4 trillion today. We are $4 trillion today. We are $17.9 trillion in PPP, the third largest economy in the world in purchasing power parity, which is an economic mechanism to compare a basket of goods and services because the pricing in various countries is very different. China, I think, is about 36 trillion, US 32, India is 17.9, the third largest economy in the world. In nominal terms, we are the fifth, not yet overtaken Japan. IMF says we'll overtake by the end of this year. And I think Niti Aayog jumped the gun. They don't read. They normally don't read what is written. Just read the headlines and talk something. I guess it happened. But we're going to do it very, very soon. And we will be the third largest economy overtaking Germany, possibly in maybe 2 years' time. Now, how do you grow our economy from here to $10, $12 trillion in the next 10 years? Can it be done? Yes. Because to grow the economy, there are two important things that are required. Consumption and investment. Today, we save 29% of GDP. We invest 31% of GDP. 2% is the capital that we need from overseas. And we invested last year, 31st of March 2025, we just got the numbers I think this week, 98 lakh crores last year. 98 lakh crores, about 1.1, 1.2 trillion dollars. There are only 3 countries that invest $1 trillion a year. China, United States, and India. We invested $1 trillion, government of India $250 billion, household $450, I think, and the private sector about $350. So I think we are making huge investment. And the problem of India is not the capacity to invest, capacity to absorb the investment. Our metro is 3 years behind schedule, run by a bad management. We don't know when they're going to start. Every infrastructure project is 2-3 years behind because the companies lack the capacity to execute. We lack the capacity for project management because we're growing like this. And it happened to China too many years ago. And we have to grow the capacity to absorb capital. Getting capital is not difficult, but spending the capital and executing projects is difficult. And we are mumbling along and we're doing well. So we can have a savings 29 to 34% for the next 10-15 years. China saves 45% of GDP, 45% of a $20 trillion economy. All right? China opened up in 1978. We opened up in 1991. We are 24 years behind China at this point of time. So the balance is consumption, 70%, out of which 60% is consumption by all of us and 10% by the government. And we have to grow consumption at maybe 7 to 8% in real terms, and investment has to grow maybe 8 to 10%. If both of them grow, we can easily grow at maybe 7 to 8% a year for the next 10 years. China has done it, but we can grow. And with a nominal growth of maybe 10.5%, 11%, because 3.5%, 4% is inflation, we can easily grow 10 to 11% in nominal terms. The big challenge for this growth becoming shown in dollars, because the world measures economic growth in dollars, is the depreciation of the rupee. Why does the rupee depreciate so much? In 1994, when I joined Infosys, the rupee was 33 rupees to a dollar. Today is 85.5. It depreciates 3% a year. Why is it growing 3%? It's depreciating 3% a year because of internal inflation. Inflation now has come to 3.5%, 4%. Earlier in the last decade of the UPA in the last 5 years, inflation was 10, 11% because of mismanagement. And inflation is reflected in a current account deficit. We have a deficit in goods of $285 billion. If you look at trade statistics, deficit in goods of $285 billion because we import more than export. And in imports, we have a net import of oil of about $120 billion. And we import $80 billion of electronics, $65 billion of gold. India has got 30,000 tons of gold. I think it's worth $2.5, $3 trillion. It's a rich country. All the gold is there. Anywhere you look in Bangalore, anywhere you see, you can see a lot of gold and gold and gold and gold. It's got some very nice uses, and people show it off very well, including this, the items here. So, our deficit in goods is high, but we have been having a surplus in services. Last year, the surplus in services was around $210 $215 billion. And surplus in services comes because of one, software. We export $235 billion of software. $165 billion of cash comes in. $165 billion of cash. If not for software, a finance minister is standing in front of the IMF asking for bailouts. Please remember that. And Bangalore has got a big role to play. Bangalore has the highest number of people in software and technology in the world for any city. 25 lakh people, 65,000 IT companies, 20,000 startups, 45 unicorns, $100 billion software exports. And all of you are very lucky. And all that is creating wealth. Per capita income in Bangalore is $15,000, richest city in India, richer than Bombay and Delhi. And Karnataka is the richest state in India, 28 lakh 75,000 crores GDP, 4 lakh 25,000 per capita income. Yet Siddaramaya's government gives freebies to 60% of Karnataka's population thinking they're poor, which is ridiculous. And that's why you must stand and protest. Give it to the really poor, 20-25%. It cannot be. But give it to the poor, even if 25%, not 65%. Invest in higher education. Out of 25 lakh people, 11 lakh people are born here, native Kannadigas. The balance have come from outside. Nothing about people coming from outside. We want them to come. The best minds of India, the most energetic, most entrepreneurs should come to India. But we must train our own people. North of Karnataka, if you remove Bangalore and Hubli Dharwad, could be as poor as UP and Bihar. It's very sad because the development has taken place in the south, in the old Mysore area, and the South Kendra and districts and the coastal districts. So, we have done very well in the past. How can we do in the future? So, there's a trade deficit, and the trade deficit is fixed by the surplus on services, and the surplus on services growing in double digits. So, in the next 1 or 2 years or 3 years, if the gap narrows a bit, the rupee will stabilize. So, the 10-11% will translate into GDP growth at 10-11%. For 20 years, China held the currency at 7.2 yuan per dollar. So that any growth that happened, including inflation, was reflected in the GDP in dollar terms. And that's why China's nominal GDP of 20 trillion, PPP of 36 trillion is very close, whereas India's nominal of 4 trillion and PPP of 17.9 is 4 times more. The highest multiple in PPP for an economy is that of India. So that's a big benefit that's going to leave. And this year with oil at $65 per barrel, we could see a contraction of the goods deficit in this country. And that'll be exciting for us because it solves a very big problem that we have for the last very many years. And this is a result of not investing in industry in the last 40 years, especially till 1990. Because that is what has made India not develop in industries, because we were the best industrial power in 1950. So how can we grow this economy? What do we need to do? Let me give you the composition of the GDP of India. Agriculture makes up 16% of GDP. I'm just quoting from memory, okay? And industry is about 24%, that's 40%, or maybe 22%. So about 62% is services. In Karnataka, agriculture is 14%, and I think industry is about 20%, and services 20%, services 66%. Karnataka has the highest share of service in the GDP. That's why it's the richest state. Gujarat has 20% agriculture, about 35% industry, and 45%, if I'm right. Yeah, 45% is services. And services require highly educated people. Our gross enrollment rate of young people in college, which I want MP Kumar to rectify, in Karnataka is about 36. Lowest in South India. For all the talk about, we've done so well. 36 is the lowest. Kerala is higher, maybe 38. Telangana is higher, Andhra is higher, and Tamil Nadu is 49. But the south of Karnataka is maybe 60. The north of Karnataka is 20. It is pathetic. The disparity between North and South Karnataka is pathetic. I think we've got to rectify that. We've got to improve education, pump in money there to educate all our young people so they too can have a great future. So, this is the composition. Now, agriculture can grow maybe 4 to 5% a year in real terms. Now, where are people working? 46% of our workforce is working in agriculture. 46%. That's why they're poor. The per capita income for agriculture is something like about 90,000 rupees for India, I think. And people who work in industry is about 250,000, and people who work in service about 350,000. I mean, that's the rough ratio. Karnataka, the services get about 475,000 rupees a year. So the multiple is people working in services get about 5 times the income that people get in agriculture. So we had to move people from agriculture to industry and services, and that is why industrialization is important. From industrialization, we move to services and create a skilled workforce to transform the income earning ability of Indians. Now, out of this 46%, you'll be very surprised, women are 63% in agriculture. Women are 63%, men are 37%. The ratio for men has come down by 7 percentage points in the last 5 years. So men are moving away from agriculture. 80 million more women have come into the rural area working in the last maybe 8-10 years. 80 million. That's why the lefties keep saying, oh, you're not created jobs. You created only these 80 million are working in agriculture. They're all women. Why have they come into agriculture? Because animal husbandry, milk has gone up. We produce 250 million tons of milk, the largest in the world. Self-help groups have come into being. They're all doing, many household goods and selling all over the place. And Modi has got this program of Lakpati Didis, remember? So all that money is being pumped into the sector. So more and more women are coming, which is very important because this is a very precious resource. Women should come into the workforce. Women should work. They'll add to economic activity all round, and it's actually happening, and possibly the share of agriculture in total workforce is going to come down. And 24% is industry, out of which maybe 60-70% are men, and the balance is services. Again, about 60-70% are men, and in urban areas, about 26% of the workforce is women. Sadly, in urban areas, there are lesser working women than in rural areas. Of course, poverty is greater in rural areas. They're forced to work, and the men migrate. And in urban areas, possibly they're more settled, and maybe there are not enough opportunities, and maybe family dominates people's thinking, which is good. I think it's important to bring up good children. But whatever it is, this is a composition. So what should we do? We should grow agriculture at 4 to 5%. What is the problem in agriculture? If you look at the composition of agriculture, only 33% of the agricultural output is cereals. What are cereals? Rice, wheat, jowar, etc. So all these Punjabi farmers jumping up and down, they make a small part of the agricultural output. The biggest part is fruits and vegetables, growing at 13-14%. Animal husbandry, milk and meat, growing at 13-14%. So cereals is coming down in value. And in cereals, most of them have got MSP. MSP means they get market prices. So what we need to do is increase the farmer's income from fruits and vegetables, animal husbandry, spices, and the rest, which forms agriculture, by connecting them to markets, because they get 40-45% of the retail price, because they have to go to the mandis and all kind of stuff. And that's where the problem lies. And that's where we have this big leftists ganging up with the so-called farmers' rebellion and all the kind of nice stuff to prevent them, because they're all controlled by the Artiyas. The middlemen were controlling and pumping in money. I mean, maybe 3,000-4,000 crores was spent by the agitators for 1 year, sitting down there, feeding 100,000 people a year. People should ask where the money came from, because democracy is a system of competitive lobbies. And the tragedy of India is urban people like us have no lobby. We don't care. People don't care. We pay taxes. And that's going to change very soon. I'll explain to you later. So we got to grow that, and if farmers are able to get 10% more of the market price, they don't need to borrow money. They will be better off, and that can be done by linking them to markets. So we're suggesting to government, link them to agri-tech startups. Agri-tech startups create apps to link consumers, farmers to markets, and I think that's very important. And by linking that, they can get better prices and prices in time. It's a very important part of development, because 10% increase comes down. The total quantum agricultural value is about 56 lakh crores last year. I'm just quoting from memory. Remember, many of you are smart, Google and find out. It's close to that. And it's important because that has the largest number of people who are impacted. Second is we got industry. Industry, there is natural resources and manufacturing. Manufacturing, I think, is about 18% or so. And why is manufacturing not taken up? Manufacturing is not taken up in India, primarily for the reason we don't have a good logistic support. If you manufacture in Nagpur, can you supply to Bombay? The cost of transportation is so high that they say if you import steel from Rotterdam, it's cheaper in Bombay than getting it from Jamshedpur. Our supply chain costs are 14% of GDP. Now it's come to 12% after GST. With all the roads and the trains taking off, is going to come to 10-8%. Then we're becoming competitive. Just today I read that India has the lowest cost for manufacturing in the world, much lower than China. Because logistics has to improve. Time was when a truck from Bangalore to Delhi took about 4 to 5 days. Now they can travel in 1.5 hours. With the Western corridor, railway corridor, the Eastern railway corridor getting fulfilled, the Eastern is ready, the Western will get ready possibly by another 6 months. It's already 6 years behind schedule. And if it gets ready, our goods train will travel at 65 kilometers an hour as against 25 kilometers. Can you travel at 25 kilometers per hour? What a waste. You can travel at 65 because they got these new tracks going from place to place. And I think it's important to build logistics. So India is building a logistics hubs, and I think that is improving, and that is creating competition. And let me give you how we are in industry. Last year, we sold 145 million tons of steel, second largest in the world. China sold 1.1 billion. Last year, we sold 475 million tons of cement, second largest in the world. China, 2.2 billion tons. Last year, we sold 21 million two-wheelers, highest in the world. We sold 5.2 million four-wheelers, third highest in the world after China and the United States. All right? And in every facet of manufacturing, we are number 2 or 3 in the world. It's underpriced. We're the 5th largest manufacturing power. You hear all these stupid things in the media which everybody fills up. Oh, there is no manufacturing, nothing is happening. Nobody looks at data. Because everybody takes pride in pushing India down and saying you're poor, you're useless, you can't do anything. But we've done very well. We export about 3.5 million two-wheelers, export 650,000 cars. But the problem is, our auto companies make a lot of money. Bajaj makes 23% operating margin, the highest profit for a two-wheeler in the world. Highest profit. Maruti makes 18% operating profits before paying royalties, highest in the world. Ford makes 9.5% operating profits at the best of times because there's no competition. We got tariffs, no competition, so we as consumers pay a very heavy price. And that is making them rich and fat. They want more profits, so we must open up for competition. We want to protect. We are scared of China coming in. And we should open up. BYD should come and cut the price of cars. Of course, there won't be roads to drive the car. That's a different thing. At least you can sit in the car and enjoy yourself on the road. That's what Sanjeev is doing. He'll be on the way soon. So I think and we must see this manufacturing is going up. But then for foreigners to come and start a manufacturing plant is difficult because you have to buy the land. Buying the land in all the states, you have to pay a rokada bribe. In Karnataka, that KDB and others are so corrupt. I once fought with one of the BJP industry ministers in front of Shri Yedurappa and told him he's being very corrupt because he's asking money from multinationals to come here. I fought with him. How can you ask people for bribes to get land? Because allot to you in the high-level committee, allot you power, water, everything is done in one meeting, boom, boom, boom. Then you go run behind them. ಎಲ್ಲ ಹೇಳ್ತಾರೆ ಅದು ದೊಡ್ಡವರು ಮಾಡೋದು ನಮ್ಮದು ಏನು ಮಾಡಬೇಕು ಇದು ನಮ್ಮದು. And the corruption in Karnataka is very different from corruption in Tamil Nadu. In Tamil Nadu, the ministers are corrupt, but they get the work done. If the officials don't do the work, transfer to Ramnathpuram or somewhere. Here they don't do the work, there's nothing you can do. Because I heard a new thing which I'm not sure, MP Kumar, you must forgive me. They said that officials collect money, become venture capitalists. They go buy a post and give money and put one of their nominees to get money. I applied for a building approval. They asked for a big bribe. I refused and said, why? Then they went and met the officials. You know what he said? Sir, ನಾನು ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಇಷ್ಟು ದುಡ್ಡು ಕೊಟ್ಟಿದ್ದೀನಿ ಸರ್, 1 ವರ್ಷಕ್ಕೆ ಇವಾಗ 9 ತಿಂಗಳನ್ನು ಟ್ರಾನ್ಸ್ಫರ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ, ನಾವು ರಿಕವರ್ ಮಾಡಿ ನಾನು ಏನು ಸರ್ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು? ಇನ್ವೆಸ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡಿಲ್ವಾ ನಾನು? It is shocking to you. That's what happens in the state because they don't listen. And we are stuck all along. But the important thing is happening called contract manufacturing. Today I had a banker in my office who told me, Keynes Technologies. You heard of Keynes Technologies, Mysore? Contract manufacturing. He raised capital for them at 2,600 crores market value. In 3 years, it's gone to 40,000 crores. The founder of Keynes, a Mysorean, for God's sake, a Mysoreans, all of Papam cases. Very quiet, nice people, don't you think earning money is bad? He owns 60% of 40,000 crores, MP Kumar. What are you doing? Running a university, doing public service. 60% of 40,000 crores, billionaire after billionaire, Mysorean, Nammauru, Kannadigaru. This contract manufacturing is come, and contract manufacturing means you manufacture for others. So you set up a factory, you manufacture for others, like Dixon and Keynes and others. And so I come from abroad and say, I want this. 6 months I start manufacturing and selling, use my brand and market. They will manufacture. They have an EBITDA of 3 or 4%, very narrow margins, but they grow. Today, Dixon has got 45,000 crores revenue and makes about maybe 1,000 crores profit, peanuts, but the market value is 70,000 crores. 70,000 crores. India has about $450 billion enterprises in the market, $120 billion startups. India has about, I think, 350 billionaires. All of you should become billionaires. Don't waste your time doing social science and all that, history and all that, okay? So, if you look at all that, there is growth. So manufacturing can come with contract manufacturing, easily grow 8 to 9%. But to grow, we have to export. And to export, it has to be competitive. We have to build capacity. Steel capacity is going up to 300 million tons by 2030. Cement of 675, 700 will go to maybe 1 billion tons. Vehicles may go to 7 to 8. 20-30% we have to export. Because if you export from here, costs come down, it gets automated. And manufacturing is now getting automated. Fully automated, robotics all the way. If you go to a car plant, you don't find too many people, it's all robots. We went to the Tesla factory in Fremont, California. Only robots are there, huge robots. Pick it up, bang, 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 bang. People are walking down just seeing whether the machines are working. A friend of mine went to China. He saw a factory 1 kilometer deep by half a kilometer, all dark. They said, is it closed? No, it's working. All robots, no people. Something goes wrong, a red light comes, you sit in the office, look at the PC and adjust it and make it work again. And then the goods come out, loaded into a truck by a robo, and it goes. The trucks travel on their own too. And that's the extent. So we're going to have greater degree of automation. When the greater degree of automation happens, robotics comes up, that will work. So manufacturing can grow through, can go through robotics, can go through contract manufacturing, but you must export more and more. And the third is services. Service has many components. One of it is government, other is professional services, retail, other is financial services. And services is a by-development of growth in industry and agriculture, because services sit at the top of the totem pole. But we have the largest software service industry in the world. We export $235 billion of software. So $165 billion of money comes in. About 60 lakh people are employed in software. Of the top 10 software service companies, the market value globally, 5 are Indian. Of the top 5, 3 are Indian. Of the 32 lakh people working in the top 10, 23 lakhs are Indian. Of the 10 lakh people hired every year in software, 5 lakh are Indian. And Bangalore hires 1.5 to 2 lakh software people every year. So life is going to get worse. There are going to be more vehicles. Out of 1.2 crore people in Bangalore, there are 1.1 crore vehicles, 26 lakh cars. And all of you are going to buy cars tomorrow or day after, right? But somebody will give you the cheap money to buy the car. So in services, we are going to grow. And now in services, we're getting automation, we're getting AI. What is AI? AI is an algorithm which can be trained to do many of the tasks that human beings can do, because it has an ability to repeat itself from time to time. And for AI, you got to train the machine using machine language, machine learning. And machine learning means you train the machine like you see a child. You see a 2-year, 3-year-old child. The child sees, its image is captured in the brain, and the brain interprets, and the child recalls and keeps on doing the same thing, and then it becomes subconscious. When I see MP Kumar today, what happens? I see his image, it comes to my retina, it goes to my brain, it connects to my 92 billion neurons, and the neurons immediately from the database says, that is MP Kumar. It happens like this instantaneously. And that's what the machine training is. For that, you require a huge amount of cloud architecture with a huge amount of capacity, which is coming. United States has the highest amount of cloud capacity. India is number 4 or 5. We're going to be number 3 in India after China. In about 4 years, we're going to build 3,500 megawatts of hyper cloud capacity. And cloud capacity machine training is going to improve matters. I think that's very, very important, and that's going to drive the economy. And by 2030, we'll have more people working in software than the United States. The US has 6 million people working in software, out of which 1 million are Indians. Of the 10 million working for the United States companies all around the world, 4 million are Indians, out of which 3 million of the 6 million working in India in the software export industry work for American companies. So we dominate America. 40 lakh out of 1 crore people working in American software, and Indians both here and there. And we have 25 lakh people in Bangalore, 15 lakhs in California. We have more people working in software than California. And we have 75 lakh people working in software, 60 lakh in the export industry, and the balance in our local industry and in startups. So we have to grow the service sector. So if we grow 7%, 7.5% with $1 trillion, $1.2 trillion of investment, we can grow at about 10, 11%, and that can translate and multiply for the next 10 years, and we could be able to reach maybe $10 trillion of GDP from 4 trillion, maybe in 10, 12 years' time, depending on the rupee-dollar rate. So is this possible? Yes. We're going to enter the most exciting period of India's growth. What we added in GDP from 1947 till 2025, that's about 78 years, we're going to add in the next 10 years. Can you imagine that? Don't just clap. From tomorrow, work 12 hours a day, 100 hours a week, like Murthy said. It's only hard work and smart work that will make you succeed, and there's going to be tremendous competition. Remember, 60% of work that human beings can do will be done by AI in 10 years. Any work that is repetitive will be done by AI. And what will human beings do? You've got to have deep skills, you've got to have creativity. Mayur and everybody, people like Mayur will do very well because they're creative people. So we got to be creative, and we got to do very well. Mayur is here, the creative fellow. The AI cannot replace Mayur because he can think on his feet and imagine things the machine cannot imagine yet. And we're going to have artificial general intelligence, AGI, where the machine will come close to what human beings can do in maybe 3 or 4 years, when that will be the singularity event, when machines can work autonomously like human beings. And we are in the midst of the digital revolution today. In 1750, when the Industrial Revolution started, India and China were the largest economies. With the invention of the steam engine in Great Britain, Europe took over. For the next 250 years, Europe dominated. 15 years ago, the internet took over. The internet is a platform where we can connect with each other synchronously, asynchronously, 24 hours a day. And we can get free entertainment, we can get education, financial services, health, and everything else, and rich videos all the time. The accumulated knowledge of humankind is available for free on the net. Right, Doc? Doc knows it. He's made it happen. And this is extraordinary. So amidst the digital revolution, out of 8.2 billion people on the planet, 5.8 billion have a mobile phone, 5.6 billion people are on the social media. So anybody, anywhere connecting with the web on a cheap mobile phone with a cheap data plan can connect. So you can start a business anywhere and sell to anybody in the world. Because the Industrial Revolution created the global supply chain, which is physical. The digital revolution connects you directly with the consumers, and the supply chain is gone to the back end. Now that is the world that all of you are going to enter. And that is what makes India's growth very exciting. But to make it happen, we have to work. We have to reform government. And we have to make sure that India can develop. And that is the message the great economist, banker, fighter, revolutionary. He belongs to a family which fought for India's freedom. If you are born about 60, 80, 90 years back, you will be spending 5 years in Kala Pani. Now, instead of Kala Pani, he is spending in the government of India being a disruptor. So I want to share all this with you, the background, keeping you warm till the great man comes. Thank you very much for listening to me.